Most people visit Tallinn, Estonia as only a day trip, often as a cruise ship stop. What if you give yourself a little more time here by exploring beyond the medieval center?
We set up a base here to discover the deeper stories that don't always make the top 10 lists. And as always, we'll share our costs at the end from our 15 days here.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way. If you've never heard of Estonia, it's located in Northern Europe, sitting right across the Gulf from Finland, bordering Latvia to the south and Russia to the east. Tallinn is its capital city.
In order for us to discover these deeper stories, we chose our home base northwest of Old Town in a neighborhood called Kalamaja. It's a trendy historic district famous for its Tallinn houses, classic 1920s wooden buildings built around a central fire-resistant stone staircase. Now, we didn't have a stone staircase, but we did have an elaborate fancy metal one.
Which meant we had to go up and down stairs for our bed every night.
That's one way to get your stairs in.
Now, we did have a balcony, and it was really nice because you have a lot of sunlight the time of year that we were in Tallinn.
Which was mid-June.
And we also had walkable access to Old Town. In fact, our area was kind of halfway between the coast and Old Town, so we could choose either one as a walk. And we also were pretty close to the tram system, which is basically a loop, not so much getting you from point A to point B, but circular around the city.
So obviously the medieval city is going to be the most touristy part of town, but it is still very interesting and worth visiting.
Now, people are wearing costumes in some of the restaurants, which will clue you in that it's touristy. They're attracting you with the visuals, but you'll also know you're getting towards the medieval center when you go through gates, like partial walls with towers. You'll see a few of them around the city, and you can tell the transition happens.
And there also is an elevated area where the rooftops stretch toward the Baltic Sea and the spires rise above the old city.
And there's a couple ways of getting up there. We went the hard way up the stairs, but if you walk through the medieval center of town, you can go up gradually and not have to climb so much.
Which is really probably good if you have mobility issues, but the reality is cobblestones aren't the easiest to navigate.
Correct.
Now, one of the things that makes Tallinn so lovely is that it has all of these beautiful spires.
One of the most recognizable entrances to Old Town is the Viro Gate.
That leads us to Town Hall Square, the center of city life for centuries.
And it has a lot of seating and a lot of space for people.
We always recommend to look up, and you can see Old Thomas weather vane, which I noticed that there are a lot of really interesting weather vanes all throughout the city.
They seem to love weather vanes in this city.
There are a lot of hidden alleyways that kind of take you from one part of the city to another. One of the most famous is St. Catherine's Passage. It's an arched stone walkway, and it's got a bunch of guilds, and that's where artisans still work inside tiny workshops. There's ceramics, glass, leather goods, textiles, and jewelry that's made by hand. These aren't the kind of alleys that maybe you would ever feel unsafe walking through, but they always had little surprises tucked inside them. We met up with one of our viewers at MacBook, Estonia's oldest continuously operating cafe, dating back to 1864.
Across from the cafe is a section of posters protesting the Russian war. These countries that border Russia are all concerned about how things are going in Ukraine, so there's a lot of news and a lot of talk about it.
And it makes perfect sense when you consider that Russia had occupied the Baltics for many years. The fear of Ukraine being defeated and Russia taking over Estonia is a very reasonable concern that people have. We have a whole video from Riga, Latvia, where we explored the Museum of the Occupation, which shares a lot of the same history as Tallinn and Estonia does, so you can check that video out next.
While wandering through Old Town, we found the Rabbit Hole, which is a fairly new restaurant, and it looked like they had some local cuisine, and certainly they're very proud of their rabbit dishes.
Looks delicious.
And because we're at a rabbit hole, I've got to have the rabbit dumplings. The waitress said they were really good, so. I've had rabbit before and I like it. These are delicious.
I'm trying some traditional pea soup that's Estonian. Really looks delicious.
It's like barley.
It does taste like there's barley in here for sure. I like it quite a lot. It actually, I think, is going to be pretty darn filling because this is a full deep bowl, but it is really delicious. I like it.
Street sides, that always means more.
One convenience of staying in the Kalamaja area was how close it was to the Balti market.
This isn't your typical farmer's market. In the front, you can see that there's produce sections and booths set up for that. And then after that, it gets a little strange. It's like the individual stores had their own little buildings inside the building.
Yeah, most of the time there are just stalls, but these were separate, like 4 walls of a building inside this much bigger market area.
And it's also connected to a much larger building, which also has restaurants and a big supermarket and other shops that you would not expect in a farmer's market.
Yes, no farmer's market that I've ever been to has had multiple floors with escalators.
True.
Just beyond that is the Teleskivi Creative City. And it used to be a former industrial complex that's now been transformed. There's restaurants, galleries, shops. There was also space for temporary exhibits like this striking one.
I wasn't sure if this was performance art or just art, so I had to take a really close look. Tallinn's position on the Earth is unique. You get a very long day in the summer and a very short day in the winter. Now, we were there luckily during June, which is a great time of year. Proof of the day being really long here in Tallinn. This is 10:40 p.m. We're getting a beautiful sunset. It's been a bit of a overcast day, but turns out to be really nice tonight. And this will last for a while. I don't expect to see darkness till after 11.
It costs a little bit more, but when you have that many hours of daylight, you're really getting your money's worth. We saw signs everywhere for the open air museum, and I don't know if we would have necessarily gone there, but it's definitely a great place to go if you happen to be there for Midsummer's Eve, like we were. It's called Janapäev, and it's one of the country's most important national celebrations. Unfortunately, for as many beautiful days as we had, it was overcast when we went.
Now you can get there via bus, which is what we did, but it was a very crowded bus by the time we were there. And it turns out it's only a couple kilometers away, so you can take a bolt and get there just as easy.
Although it costs a little bit more on Midsummer's Eve for tickets to get in, if you buy a Tallinn card, it's included free, even on Midsummer's Eve. We thought this was going to be a very touristy thing, but it really was as much for locals as it was for tourists.
Yeah, it's a festival of all their traditional folk dances and music and traditions. In fact, the bonfire was an amazing tradition, and watching these people walk around it backwards because it's good luck or whatever.
Well, the idea, I think, is you're supposed to walk around it 3 times for good luck, and then you walk around it backwards for 3 more to confuse the devil so he doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, it confused me because you can see some of this footage where I can't figure out how to record us walking backwards.
It's not easy when you're walking around a bonfire.
And it was a very big, very hot bonfire, which was nice. It was a little chilly that night.
And of course, it was all ages. There were grandparents, parents, children, strollers. I think on a wet day, it wouldn't be ideal because it would be very muddy.
Definitely.
Aga mulle siiski üks kõik on see, ei kui rõõmsat südant miski kurvaks tee. Aga mulle siiski üks kõik on see, ei kui rõõmsat südant miski kurvaks tee.
There's a lot to explore and a lot of walking that you have to do to get to these little areas of the open air museum. It's very interesting in some of them, especially the ones that have a lot of exhibits inside the older building.
You could spend an entire day, and I think this is probably a place that would be good for field trips, for instance, because they have little farmhouses showing how things used to be. Helsinki is a quick 2.5-hour ferry ride, and it's offered multiple times a day. We took a walk over to Pier D, but we decided to save Helsinki for another time. But you can't understand Tallinn without getting to know its maritime history.
And Fat Margaret houses a stunning maritime museum. It's several floors of different eras of their maritime history.
If you like learning about ships in general, inside there are hundreds of detailed ship models, historic navigation tools, and fantastic interactive displays detailing the Baltic trade routes.
Great if you have kids because you get to touch and move things.
At first, I wasn't sure if I would be impressed, but when we kept going to different floors and finding new things, it really was worthwhile. In fact, one of the centerpieces was its 700-year-old medieval cog shipwreck that was uncovered right in the city's harbor.
And if you go to the top, you get a nice view of the area and you get to hang out there and have drinks.
And if you have mobility issues, there is also an elevator.
The Broken Line Monument is just outside of Fat Margaret, and it's a striking severed arch. It's dedicated to the 852 lives lost when the MS Estonia ferry sank in 1994. So this is a recent event.
Sometimes the memorials are difficult to understand or they're very artistic, but I think this one strikes the right balance of being curiosity-inducing and also respectful. It's a thought-provoking monument because it's got two different sections that you kind of have to look at from two different viewpoints to get the full picture.
In fact, it's really hard to get a full picture of it because it's so big.
Not to be confused with the Fat Margaret Maritime Museum is the Seaplane Harbor Museum.
It's a little further away and it's on the coastline. It has much bigger displays. It looks like multiple hangars put together.
Inside the hangars of this massive museum are submarines and a shipwreck, lots of things worth seeing. Sitting right next door is a dark, decaying sea fortress called the Patarei Prison. It was originally built by a Russian Tsar and later used as a brutal prison by both the Soviet and Nazi regimes. They're renovating the museum here, but it's going to be called the Patarei Memorial Museum for Victims of Communism. I'm not sure what the actual point of this statue that's face down in the dirt, but to me, I see it as a rejection of communism.
We wandered over to Freedom Square, and it hosts the War of Independence Victory Column. If you walk up to it, you can actually go behind it, and there's a little park there that we spent a little time looking around and just enjoying the environment that we had. I like when you find a bench, and there's a breeze up here. We're pretty high up in Tallinn right now. Beautiful fountain in front of us and just a lovely view. We're not walking today.
Yes, but it's a beautiful day, and we know that we're going somewhere after this that's going to get colder the longer we stay. And that doesn't sound really exciting to us. So I think I'm enjoying the sunshine and the light breeze and the great views.
That deep respect for liberty is echoed on a more intimate scale back inside Old Town at the Banned Books Museum. It's only open for a few hours a day from Wednesday through Saturday, but it's definitely worth checking out.
The banned books aren't just historic books or something that you would only find in Estonia. They're from all over the world, and people come and donate books. In fact, while we were there, a group came in and donated books. So we got to listen to the whole back and forth conversation about why this book was banned.
Given how heavily authorities censored Estonian literature during the Soviet occupation, this room is a powerful reminder of how precious freedom of thought really is. Especially this particular plaque really resonated. If words weren't important, they wouldn't try so hard to take them away. If you enjoy architecture as much as we do, we highly recommend a walk along Pick Street.
Not only is it beautiful houses and history about them, but there's a full display breaking down each individual house and what it's referencing.
One of the most striking parts of the skyline are the onion domes from the Alexander Nevsky Cathedral. It's directly across from the Estonian Parliament. It was built in 1900 by the Russian Empire specifically to project power right across from Estonia's seat of government. Let's look at what a slow travel stay like this actually cost. Travel from Riga, Latvia cost us $358 or $179 per person. Lodging was $2,306 or $165 per day. Getting around the city cost $63. Dining and groceries were a total of $874 or $31 per person per day. Activities cost us $68, so the total cost is $3,669. Minus the cost of travel from Riga, we spent $3,311, which breaks down to $237 per day and $119 per person per day. So what did you think about Tallinn, Estonia?
Well, I'll tell you what, having 18 plus hours of daylight really brightens up any place that you're in. And our apartment had 2 walls that were 2 stories of glass. So we definitely had plenty of light anytime we wanted.
I did like the mix of the maritime history as well as the medieval old town, which was beautiful. Unfortunately, there were some holidays that prevented some things from being open when we wanted to see them, but every country is entitled to their national holidays.
I did like that it was very walkable. In fact, getting to Old Town, we did that a few times just because there were many things to see there. And during those holidays, it was nice because many of the restaurants around us were closed, but you could go to Old Town and have plenty of places to eat and explore.
As much as I really was glad that we had a chance to visit Tallinn, if I had to choose between it and Riga, I would probably go to Riga. I preferred its Art Nouveau architecture, and at the same time, I felt like it was a lot easier to eat at a variety of restaurants compared to Tallinn.
Sure, but I think that Tallinn has a wonderful Old Town. It didn't feel like there was just this tiny pocket of tourist places that you could go to. There was a lot of exploring we did in that Old Town, and we worked out going up and down the hills too. It did feel a little colder than Riga as far as a place to stay. So I kind of would go for Riga too, but I definitely wouldn't pass up either.
If you want to know more about why Riga enchanted us so much, you can check out that video next. Thank you so much for watching. The best compliment you can give to us is to recommend our videos to your friends and family.
And remember to
Wander more,
worry less,
and bring a passport.
Until next time.
Until next time.